So what's going on, everybody? We are back with another episode on the For the Winners podcast. So we have a new series here. Okay, we have a new series. It's called If I Were in My 20s. So you all know that all this year we've been interviewing CEOs and different people like that. But I wanted to dig in more on the talent end because we've been having so many entry-level candidates asking us questions about things that they should be doing long term, asking about mentorship and a lot of other different things. So I said, okay, why not go and get some of the top talent in the industry with years of experience and have them pretty much tell you themselves what would they do differently if they were in your shoes, if they were your age in their 20s. So here we are. So our first guest on the show is Mr. Bryan Daniel. Now, I'll let him give an introduction of who he is, what he does, his experience, and then we'll get deeper into the question. So happy to have you on, Bryan, and just go ahead and give people a little introduction of who you are and what you do.
Thanks, Nathaniel. I appreciate you asking me here today. So basically my background, professional experience in television production before college. I got my degree in mass communication and was really focused on gaining experience during college. And I had about 10 years experience of television, then another 10 years of sales. And the last 22 years, I've been involved in user experience design and user experience, creating usability and useful type of software products. I tell people that if you've ever used a website or if you've ever used some software and you thought, man, that's 15 or 30 minutes of my life I'll never get back, it's my job to make sure that never happens.
So thank you for that. So what made you even want to go into this path of being in UX, period? What inspires you to want to take this on?
Sure. That's an interesting, so you have to understand that I progressed from media production into sales, okay? And then from sales, I was actually brought into a small agency in Dallas, an ad agency that was traditional. And they brought me in to research a pitch. And that led into me writing the entire pitch back when pagers were back in the day when pagers were really popular. It was for a paging company in Dallas, a large national paging company. And so went from researching to writing it. I actually ended up leading the entire pitch. It was really kind of just, God just really gave me favor there. And so I saw at that point, very shortly after that, was asked to take over leading a project with Sabre, a big travel information network that spun out of American Airlines. And so I started doing this user experience thing. I just didn't know that's what it was called. And so then, a couple years later, I was contracting and was asked to lead a usability study on some new software. And that was around 2000. And then in 2005, I was a project manager with a large digital ad agency in Dallas. And I saw wireframes, which are essentially the blueprints for websites being put under clients' nose, and their eyes would just glaze over. They didn't have a clue what it was. And I was thinking, something's wrong here. I'm the project manager. I'm not responsible for producing this, but something's wrong. And so I got more interested in, actually designing the experience for the user. And so that's really kind of how it all started. That would have been, you got to back up really to 2000 when I ran my very first usability study. So really understanding qualitative and quantitative analysis. My dad was trained as a psychologist by the U.S. Army right out of his master's degree. Sent to Tokyo, Japan, and was trained as a psychologist. So I caught psychology. I will say taught psychology. Mm-hmm. And so I was really interested in people's motivation and what motivated them. So that curiosity about what makes people tick, what makes people think. And so that's really, I've come to know that as kind of cognitive psychology. So it's something that I got interested in kind of kind of back through the doorway of that. And, it wasn't until about 2008, 2009 that I went, oh, that's what I am. I'm a user experience guy. People say, are you an account guy? Are you a creative guy? And I'm like, yeah. So, which kind of leads me into this whole thing back, back during the 90s, I had a roommate and his fiance's mother told me something that was really life-changing to me. She told me these 3 words: focus precedes success. And it was very life-changing. I mean, it was almost at a spiritual level, kind of life-changing. And obviously my relationship with Jesus Christ is central to my person and my being. But this lady shared that with me, and I'd always been interested in a lot of different things. And, I look at my 21-year-old who's focused as a person could possibly be. It's very focused. And 21-year-old son, I look at my 25-year-old and he's not focused, whereas my 21-year-old is. My 21-year-old got a 25% raise earlier this year. Yeah, and is doing very well. But anyway, the the whole thing for me was really getting focused on what I was good at and what I love to do. And so in terms of the progression, I mean, in terms of people, we're coming through some really hard times now. So I had a 21-month job search after 9/11, 21 months.
Wow.
It was pretty grueling. I had an 11-month job search at 2006, 2007. And so I know what it means to hit hard times. So, basically after 9/11, my whole career got wiped out. I was in marketing advertising for travel technology and for technology, telecom type of stuff. And that was just wiped out literally overnight for 9/11. It just went away.
This is one thing. I'm actually happy that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
For multiple reasons. So I see how you got into the industry, and what led you up to the place that you're at right now, right? So speaking for back speaking for like the 9/11 portion right there, where you really got punched in the face. Like, I feel like a lot of younger candidates and even older candidates, well, no, I can, let's just stick to the younger.
Yeah.
They haven't really been punched in the face yet when it comes to actually like.
Well, I don't know. COVID was a pretty serious punch in the face.
Like this is COVID. I can give it to you to an extent, but like even with COVID, it was just a really big shift in remote work. Like that's what I see personally. A lot of places, if anything, they just went more remote than anything. Especially me. I staff mostly like tech SaaS companies and stuff like that. So, a lot of things really just went more like remote.
So interesting enough, I work for the world's largest IT consulting company, 488,000 people worldwide. They sent us all home. Really? They sent us all home. So yeah, so I know all about that. I've been working from home since February of 2019. So I know about that. But go back to as far as in terms of the thing you're talking about, getting punched in the face.
Because I feel like 10 years ago compared to now, it's a lot easier to find clients if you're on a freelance end, or positions if you're on the if you're on the candidate end.
Right.
So, back 10 years ago, we didn't even have we really didn't have like the LinkedIn that we have today. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Or we didn't have the Twitter that we have today and all these different tools. So like you really had to grind to really get back you
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
into the market versus just having a bunch of, you know, job boards that are literally just there and you can literally two button click, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And now you're in the system, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like,
So I started using LinkedIn in 2004.
mm-hmm,
So I'm not sure if I could say be a truly early adopter, but I started, using it pretty early on. For years, I never got any kind of contacts from recruiters, or it's very rare, I should say, that recruiters would reach out to me via LinkedIn. Now it happens every day.
mm-hmm.
Literally, I get contacted by recruiters every single day, 5 days a week, from recruiters via LinkedIn. Never fails. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I know what you're saying, but in terms of the really being able to be resilient in a job search, or just getting focused on what it is that you're interested in doing, right? So very few people get a chance to live at the intersection of passion avenue and talent drive. Most of us have to live a block or two, or maybe a long way off of that intersection. So passion is what I would do if nobody paid me, right? I would just do it just because I'm passionate about it. Talent is what I came into the world hardwired to do. I could do it well. I could beat you with one hand tied behind my back in that area, right? Because it's God-given talent, right? So the goal really is to get focused on living at that intersection, right? That intersection of passion avenue and talent drive. And so figuring out what you're passionate about, figuring out what you're good at. So what I did was I actually drew circles. Okay, so I was good in marketing. I was good in sales. I was a creative person. My mother just had her few hours shy of her master's in fine arts, right? So I got it. I was raised around the arts, right? But I was also had a business background. So I was trying to figure that, and I sat down and I drew those circles out, and I realized those intersected in an ad agency for me at that time, right? So I actually scheduled, networked around, got some appointments to actually sit down and talk with people. I said, I'm not looking for a job. I just want to talk to you about my skills and talents, and am I barking up the right tree? I was talking with a chief marketing officer for a medium-sized ad agency over in Dallas. And I said that. I said, I sat down with him and said, listen, I'm not asking you for a job. I since came to find out those are called informational interviews, right? Asking somebody in the industry for informational interview. Hey, I'd like to bring some lunch to you and sit down and talk for 15 or 20 minutes. And they're like, man, I'm really busy. And, say, listen, I'll bring a clock and I'll sit it down there on the desk if I have to. I'll bring you lunch. But sitting down and talking with a professional and saying, here are my skills, here are my passions, here are my talents, and am I barking up the right tree? Because literally, that's what I asked the guy. He's like, no, you're perfect for this. I just don't have a job for you. I'm like, I'm not looking for that. I just want to know if I'm a fit for this.
So is this before or after you got into UX?
Before, really
No.
before.
So moving into after you got into UX,
Right.
what was your journey like when it came to actually finding the right places, finding the right places to work? What mistakes did you make when it came to being at these places, to actually moving up the ladder? You know what I mean? So
Man, listen, I am the poster child for job instability. So, but I'll tell you. So I was thinking about it before we talked. So, part of that was my immaturity. Part of it was a lack of focus and goals. But part of it was also entering into a field wasn't clearly understood. So UX 20 years ago, or even 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, when you'd say UX, people immediately think in their minds, oh, that's UI.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to learn how to articulate the difference. Now, I would actually tell employers, I'm a UX architect. I'm not a designer. I play a designer on television, but I'm not really a designer. So I hit that. I think I counted 4 or 5 times that companies hired me as a UX architect, and what they wanted was a designer. They wanted a visual designer. So there were a lot. I got gut punched a lot. Literally, I was on the 10th day of escrow. We were buying a house out in West Arlington, here in Arlington, Texas, and my job literally went away at the last minute. 10th day of escrow. You only have 10 days, before you can cancel the contract. So we literally had to cancel the contract. It wasn't until a year later I was able to be back in a contract job to be able to get a full-time job. But it was a lot of discouragement, a lot more. At that point, people didn't really understand the difference between UX and UI. And so I had to get really good at articulating and evangelizing for user experience. What is user? In fact, I've got 5 different articles on LinkedIn that I've written all about user experience. And it's not just wireframes, right? It's all about the experience. But making sure, because man, there were some times that I was like, man, am I in the right field? Because I just got so knocked down. But resilience, knowing this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm passionate about, and being committed, having an unswerving commitment. If this is what you want to do, you may get knocked down. In fact, you will get knocked down. Let me just say, you will get knocked down.
So what I liked out of what you said is really getting laser focused on what exactly you're doing. And that honestly leads into a lot of resume work.
Yep.
That's going on right now. So, and this is something that we even talk to people about, because the resumes aren't laser focused on what exactly that they do. Yeah. Like, so I'm really happy that you said it. So what advice could you give to people about resumes and different things like that?
Sure. So basically, you have to learn how to market yourself. It's not just putting together a resume. And frankly, obviously, to the 20-year-old, someone in their 20s, they know it's not about a paper resume anymore. They're used to having it online. Mm-hmm. But it's really not just about having an online resume. It's about I had a recruiter, actually a guy in the staffing industry and consulting industry, he told me LinkedIn's the #1 job search site in the world now. So making sure that your LinkedIn profile is optimized, that in your description, that it maps into at least the things that you put in your job description map into your actual experience, your job history and experience. But so can I share something with you here that I don't know if you've seen my resume or not, but okay, you got screen sharing disabled here at this point. But basically what I've learned is that I've got 7 different areas of resumes that you need to optimize, but part of it is a value proposition or personal branding type of thing, and then your actual experience, making sure you've got keywords that people can do, but the keywords have to tie into your job descriptions as well too. So it's not a matter of just putting a bunch of words on the page.
So break this down a little bit farther for us.
Yeah.
If you can.
Sure. So basically you've got to, let me see if I can find this. I've got a job helps thing that I put together, called Job Search 3.0. And it covers the 7 different areas of your resume, but really comes down to, can you articulate? So at my very first sales job, my manager said to me, he said, I need you to imagine WIIFM tattooed on the people's foreheads when you talk to them on the phone. And I was like, WIIFM? He was like, yeah, what's in it for me? You have to answer your question answer the question for the hiring manager as well as the hiring manager's boss. What's in it for me, right? And you have to be able to articulate that. The number one thing I need to tell people about resumes is your resume is not to get you a job. It's to get you the interview. So in sales, my sales background, I actually set appointments for other salespeople. I was an inside sales. I came back into the business world after 9/11, and I got a job as in a business-to-business call center. And I was setting appointments for other sales reps. And so I know all about closing. So I wasn't trying to sell them on the product. I was trying to sell them on the meeting with my sales rep, right? Same thing applies here. You have to put salt on the reader's tongue that says to them, oh, I need to know more about this guy or this girl, right? I need to know more, and it makes you thirsty. So a resume has to be able to have your value proposition, has to have your experience and context. It can't just have a whole bunch of skills on it. It's got to be, so I call it mini case studies, actually putting together mini case studies. It's got to have your job history, but I tell people that in the first page to 2 pages of you don't even get to my job history in my resume until like 2.5, 3 pages into my resume. So it's really contrary. Of course, been in the business for a long time, right? I've got the experience, but I tell people you have to sell and have them so hooked by the time they get to the bottom of their first page of your resume, and that's your job history is not going to hook somebody. It's got to be case studies. It's got to be, and even if it was in college, even if it wasn't did for a client, some kind of case study where you put your experience into context with bullet points, brief opening, and some kind of results, right? Some kind of metrics, some type of quantifiable or qualifiable results. So that's the most critical thing that a person can do with their resume is to make sure you got a strong value proposition, right? What is it about me that makes me different from everybody else? That in marketing terms, that's called differentiation, right? You know that with your candidates, right? The candidate has to differentiate themselves from somebody else out there in the market. So spending the time to develop a value proposition, spending the time to develop case studies, but getting focused.
How do you think a person can go into defining that themselves?
Well, there's all kinds of helps out there in personal branding. If you search on personal branding or personal value prop, I've got a whole bunch of helps, documents I've collected because I've made it my business to become an expert in that area. So I have a whole seminar on this is not your father's resume. So part of it is networking, finding people in industry that you can sit down with them and review your resume and say, what would you change, right? What is it that's going to resonate the most in your industry whatever industry you're in? You've got to be able to get real world feedback. You know, do your best to make sure that you're getting a fine, well-oiled, fine-tuned resume, but it takes work, and you can't do one resume for every job. You've got to customize your resume for every stinking job you apply for.
So that's really a gem, because a lot of people take the same one and pretty much spam it, spamming. But when things are personalized, like pretty much how you're talking about, it goes way it goes from the bottom of the pile to the top. Let's just put in simple.
So I had a recruiter one time. He tell me, Nathaniel, that my value. He said, "Oh, you have a hot sheet on your resume." I'm like, "Really? What's that?" So my value proposition basically says let me see if I can read it to you. To solve a usability problem or create a delightful experience for a mobile app, e-commerce, responsive web, or enterprise app, you need someone who can, and I put think strategically about product development, effectively research the user's needs, define the customer experience, present to C-level executives and defend design directions, elicit and elaborate user stories, guide and collaborate with the agile team stakeholders and human factors people, effectively consult with and communicate, collaborate closely, manage expectations, and drive to delivery. And then I put at the bottom of that, I'm that someone. So what I do there is I don't just say you need to hire me because I actually define the playing field. Because to do this, you need someone that can do this, 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 and this, and this. And I'm that someone. So it's kind of a bold statement, but after you've been doing this for a while, you know what you're good at. And you have to be able to also be able to remember the resume is not to get you the job. It's to get you the appointment, right? It's to get you the interview. But then you have to have case studies within that resume that they're going to say, tell me about this time. Tell me about that time. Because, interviewing is all about behavioral interviewing now, right? It's all about, tell me about a time when you did this. Tell me what you're good at, or tell me where you even had a weakness, right? Because they'll ask you those type of behavioral interviews questions. So you've got to be able to have that ammunition in your back pocket that you could reach out and go, okay, I did this here. This is how I solved a problem, right? Even if you're just coming out of college, your first time resumes, right? I've taught high schoolers on how to go about developing their first time resume, right? Because you haven't got any experience at that point, right? Mm-hmm. But you've got to define what your transferable skills are. You've got to find the way to answer that question, what's in it for me, to the hiring manager. So, and also to the hiring manager's boss, because they're going to hire, the smart hiring manager is going to hand your resume off to their boss and make sure that they're bought into you.
See, I like this. It's kind of. I feel like this is drilling back into your sales experience, because it's really like you're really just trying to sell a product, trying to sell a product. Yeah, literally.
I'm the product. I am the product, and my resume is my collateral, a brochure. Right.
I feel like if people thought about it this way, it would make the entire job search experience a lot easier for them. If they really thought of it as, like how we say, like, think of yourself as a product, and you're literally trying to sell a product, sell a product to someone,
So I facilitated a marketing communications networking group after 9/11. And I noticed that even seasoned marketing professionals didn't know how to market themselves. So it's and I've noticed this in the user experience world, that people don't know, whether they're seniors all the way down to juniors. They don't know how to market themselves. They don't know how to put their experience into context. So someone reading that, because basically a recruiter such as yourself, you're only going to get 6 to 10 seconds at very maximum when someone first reads your resume. So you have to be laser focused. You can't jump into, well, I did all your job history or lack thereof. Because if you're new to the job field, you're not going to have a whole lot of experience. So you need to be able to put in terms of job history, but you're going to have to capture that experience to say to the person they're reading it, even to the HR person who's got a list. They got a list of qualifications, keywords, or whatever they're looking at. And if you don't fit that list, round file, right? So you got to be able to. There's 4 audiences for every resume. There's the database search, right? There's the low-paid HR clerk, someone in HR. There's the hiring manager and the hiring manager's boss. You have to design a resume that's got keywords and the experience articulated in there, where all 4 audiences, you're speaking to all 4 audiences.
And I like that. And this is something that, as you say, with your consultancy, that you can help people out with as well, right?
Yeah. So, I've got that job search 3.0 resume helps document that hopefully you'll offer to your listeners, watchers, viewers. Mm-hmm. So, but and also, I'd make it, if you get enough people together, get a few people together, and want to do this is not your father's resume, I've got a whole seminar that I'm happy to do for, people free of charge. So it's just, I've received a lot of help. I've gotten blessed in my life, by a lot of people helping me, and I want to be able to, pay it forward, right? I can never pay them back, but, and also just encouraging people that, if you're looking for a job, you're going to have to do some work to get your resume, to get your talking points. If you've got some sketchy job history like me, you got to develop your talking points. You don't talk about previous jobs and bosses in a bad light, but you got to spin that properly, where you leave a very positive impression on somebody when you talk to them, not just through your resume, but also in person too.
Mm-hmm. So I like that, and I really appreciate you coming on here and dropping these gems for people, because, my candidates, they hear things come out of my mouth all of the time, but it's really just different. Like, it's just different when it's just coming from a person that's literally them. So, and that's why I really appreciate you just coming on here and talking, because this, like, your voice travels miles, man, when you just come on here and talking. So, I really, really appreciate you for coming on this show. And like how he said, he has a document and also a service that he offers. We're going to put all of this stuff down below in the description, where you can find him. You can find his documents as well. And, this is pretty much a show, you all. Like, we're bringing people on like Bryan. They're telling their history, telling how, how they got from point A to point B. They're giving their tips, and even different sources that they have, like how you see Bryan, like how he said, he has articles and things like that on LinkedIn. He has his PDFs, and he has different types of resources. So, like, we are here for you all, man. Like, seriously. So this is episode 1 of the show. Right now, we're at, as far as pre-recorded, everyone who's listening to this, we are episode 20 pre-recorded. So this is episode 1 that will be coming out with Bryan, because I really appreciate this document that he sent me in a LinkedIn message. I looked through it. I'm like, this is a really good document. So so I was like, yeah, I gotta put this episode out first. So
just interesting enough, I put the document together. I've been a resume coach for job fairs since about 2009. And I had to, because I noticed people, I'm a student of user behavior, of behavior, right? So I noticed people were like furiously scribbling down all the notes when they'd come in. We'd have a job fair, and they'd have a bunch of us that were coaching on resumes, and I'd be sharing all this stuff. I had like a PowerPoint that I would actually take people through, and they're just like furiously scribbling. I'm like, okay, I got to put this down into something I can give to them, so they can listen to me and not worry about trying to capture anything. So that's where this came out of. It actually came out of working with resume clients at job fairs and trying to help them optimize their resume. Or even I've helped people that are just, there was this one single mom that she just didn't think she had any skills at all. And I'm talking with her and like, yeah, you do have skills, and helped her craft a resume and get her back in the work world. Her husband and her son had both abandoned her. And when you can help somebody get back on their feet after they've been beat down, punched in the face, it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to help somebody. And so if I can help anybody, I'm more than happy to do that.
We appreciate you, Bryan. So that's episode 1, you all. Thank you, Bryan, for coming on to the show. And that is it for episode 1, If I Were in My 20s.